Hello, we are back with another deck for Magic Online in the modern format. This deck is not a budget deck unlike what I usually play. This is a fairly expensive deck. It has all of the old fast lands including Blackleaf Cliffs. It has Snapcaster Mages and it has Collective Brutalities. So we're looking at a fairly big budget here. However, I'm doing a video on this deck because I think it is a very powerful deck and a lot of the cards in the deck are good in other decks. So if you invest in things like Snapcaster Mages, it will be a good investment for the future of the modern format. So let's go ahead and look into the deck list and see what we're dealing with here. We have 4 Blackleaf Cliffs, 4 Darkslick Shores, 4 Spire Bluff Canals. So we've got a full play set of all of the on-color fast lands. And then we have 1 of each basic, so Island, Mountain, Swamp for the Grixis colors. Then we have 2 Gyre Reach Sanitariums, which are going to work with some of the other cards in our deck. We have 1 Creeping Tar Pit, which is a way to pressure Jace, who has just been unbanned in Modern. And we have a Keldon Megaliths, which is a way to deal with small creatures and also keep planeswalkers that aren't Jace under control. So the deck is primarily built around abusing 2 cards, which are Hollow One, and I'll go ahead and open up the card preview pane. We'll go ahead and look at Hollow One. So Hollow One, if you discard a bunch of cards on your own turn, you can cast it for 1 or 0 mana. It also has cycling, but honestly, I have yet to cycle a Hollow One in this deck. It's theoretically possible, like if it's turn 5 and you have 4 lands and you want to find like a Collective Brutality or something to not die. But generally, you're going to want to cast these. And then we also have 3 Waste Nots. So Waste Not is doing various things whenever the opponent discards a card. So we want to make them discard creatures, non-land, non-creature cards, and then lands in about that order of priority. And if we can get them to discard several creatures, we'll get several zombies. If they discard several spells, then we can draw some cards. And when we're combining this with things like Gyre Reach Sanitarium and Burning Inquiry, then it's very easy to get our mana's worth and our card's worth out of this card. So in order to turn on Waste Not and Hollow One, we have some Burning Inquiries where each player draws 3 and discards at random. So this is, at its core, similar to one of the decks that top-aided the Pro Tour that Shota Yasuka played. And we've made some adjustments to add in blue cards, and we've made some adjustments to work with Waste Not. So we cut the Goblin Lures, which are a very good card. I don't appreciate cutting those, but you have to make space for things somehow. And then as our payoff for that, we're getting Search for Azcanta and Snapcaster Mages primarily. And then we have a couple other blue spells that are just semi-decent and work with other cards. And then in the sideboard, we have 2 Notion Thieves for the J stacks and 2 Ceremonious Rejections for primarily Tron and Eldrazi Taxes. But they can come in against Affinity, and they're just an efficient answer to various things. And so as our disruption, we have, besides random discard from Burning Inquiry, we have some Lightning Bolts for creatures, and we have Collective Brutalities for spells and small creatures. And then we have Sword of Feast and Famine to kind of make it harder to remove our guys and also pressure the opponent's hand a little bit. Sword of Feast and Famine is working with all of our enchantments here. It's making them discard to get triggers from Waste Not, and if you can transform a Search for Azcanta into the Sunken Ruin, then you'll get to untap it every time you connect with the creature that the sword is on. So you can draw 2 cards a turn, you can use Azcanta and then also cast the spell you found. It lets you cheat on mana quite effectively because this is a 19 land deck, and we are doing things for 3 or 4 mana. The only thing in main deck for 4 is the Creeping Tar Pit. When we bring in Notion Thieves, we're generally also bringing in Bojuka Bog because the Jace decks are Snapcaster decks. Filling out the deck, we have some Street Wraiths, which allow you to cast Hollow on turn 1 with Faithless Looting because you'll discard 2 with the Looting, 1 with the Street Wraith cycling, and it'll cost 0. If you can get 2 Hollow Ones, that's a very quick way to win the game. It also We have Bloodghasts, which are just providing some extra pressure, and we have some Sidraxis Specters, which are replacing the Phoenix spot in the pure black-red version of this deck. So this is our flying creature with some graveyard synergy, but instead of coming back repeatedly, because we're not running the Gurmag Anglers and Tassigurs and only Hollow One would buy back the Phoenixes, we are running these which have Unearth naturally, so they don't require any assistance to come out, and then we can put a sword on them for extra discard and damage, and they will trigger Waste Not if they connect. So I believe that is everything in the main deck, so let's go ahead and look at some of the sideboard that we haven't talked about. We have 2 Vandal Blast and an Echoing Ruin. These are all for Affinity, Lantern, all the decks that you would assume. I'm testing 1 Echoing Ruin over a 3rd Vandal Blast because if the opponent gets Ensnaring Bridge down, it's very hard to win, but the game will often go long from that point. So if you draw an artifact spell, which is difficult against Lantern, but you might draw an Echoing Ruin and be able to kill 2 Ensnaring Bridges for 2 mana instead of 5 mana. We have some Nile Spell Bombs to go along with the Bojuka Bog. These generally don't come in versus the Snapcaster decks. These are more for dedicated graveyard decks like Crookclan Ironworks and Dredge. We have Grim Lavamancers. We are able to fill our graveyard extremely efficiently because of all the things like Faithless Looting, Burning Inquiry, Street Wraith, Collective Brutality. You can see these are all discarding things. So it's very easy to fuel Grim Lavamancer consistently over the entire course of a game. So in matchups where we want the ability to shock things, Grim Lavamancer will give us that ability for the duration of the game at a very efficient price. And we also have a Crypt Incursion, which comes in against Dredge as well. I don't expect very much Dredge in this meta. However, this also comes in against Burn or aggressive decks like Burn or Zoo, Goblins, anything like that. And because we can mill ourselves and because we're not running Kolaghan's Command, we don't have a huge value on creatures in our own graveyard besides Bloodghast, so we can exile them and gain 20 more life. Sometimes 30 if the game has gone long against Burn, which is unusual. And then we just have a Tassigur for matchups where we want to bring in an extra threat. So if we're playing against the Jace decks and we're bringing in the Notion Thieves, we'll probably bring in Tassigur as well. He's just a 4/5 for 1 mana, and in this deck, because we have access to blue, we can activate his ability, and if we have exiled things with Snapcaster, brought back Bloodghast, we might actually have a Lightning Bolt or a Hollow One, something reasonable in the graveyard that we can get some utility out of. So that is the deck tech. I'm going to go ahead and do video of gameplay on this same video. So we're going to jump in here. We're going to do the constructed queues. So I have been having difficulty with this deck against Tron and also against the blue-black mill deck I've played several times and have not beaten. However, it has a very good matchup against the more traditional black-red or mono-red Burning Inquiry decks because Waste Not is extremely good with Burning Inquiry and it doesn't care which player is casting it. So the opponent is running things like Goblin Lore, Burning Inquiry, Faithless Looting, and they're discarding all of their own cards, and that's triggering our Waste Nots. And we also have a decent matchup against the Jund and Abzan style mid-range decks because we have Sword of Feast and Famine, and we come out very quickly with a good draw. So we're going to go ahead and play here. So this hand does not have red mana. It does have 2 black for Bloodghast and 2 Waste Nots. This hand is fairly strong against hand disruption and creature removal, but fairly bad against fast threats. So we're going to keep this and gamble that our opponent is not on an aggro deck or a Boggles type deck. Okay, so the opponent has Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize off of Black Cleave Cliffs tends to make me think that it's Jund or Grixis Death Shadow. As I said, our matchup against Jund is fine. Our matchup against Death Shadow is a little bit worse, especially with a hand as slow as this one. We will see what the opponent takes. If they are Death Shadow, I expect them to take Burning Inquiry. If they're a slower deck, I expect them to take a Waste Not. And if they do take a Waste Not, they probably have a second Disruption spell to take the other one, and we'll be trying to win with Bloodghast. So we'll see what we draw here. It might be a red source. Okay, it's not, but it is a land, and it does something. We're going to go ahead and pass here. So this looks like, yeah, this is another Thoughtseize. So we're going to lose all of our Waste Nots, which is very unfortunate, because with the Gaia Reach Sanitarium, we would have had a constant way to grind out value against the opponent. The opponent has used 4 life, and it does look like they're Jund. So Bloodghast should be good until they get Scavenging Ooze, which could come out at any time. If they don't have Scavenging Ooze, then Bloodghast is going to do quite a bit of work. They won't really be able to do much with Liliana, for example, against the hand that we have here. Tarmogoyf would be good. Ooze would be extremely good. Okay, so it looks like they just have removal. So we're going to attack first. And then I don't see a reason to use the Sanitarium as a sorcery. It won't give us enough discards to cast a Hollow One. Okay. And we could have played the Sanitarium after our draw, but I want to see if the opponent has a Scavenging Ooze. The most likely thing we're going to do on this turn is activate the Sanitarium and discard Faithless Looting. So they do have a Scavenging Ooze. They are going to get rid of the Bloodghast, so we made a little bit of a misplay here, but we did bait out the Scavenging Ooze. So if we can draw a Lightning Bolt here and a red source next turn, we'll be doing all right. The opponent is out of green mana right now, so it's safe to discard this Bloodghast. And we've got a red source that comes in tapped. So we're going to do that. Next turn we will be able to Burning Inquiry or Faithless Looting, depending on what our hand looks like. If we don't draw something good to use in the next 2 draws, I will probably be doing Burning Inquiry because we don't have a strong play. Because of the opponent's double Thoughtseize draw, they were able to come out much stronger than we were. So this is a very slow draw for us. We should have several large creatures in play, like Hollow Ones larger than what the opponent's doing. But because they were able to double Thoughtseize our Waste Not, we couldn't really get much value. So that's a second Faithless Looting. I'll go ahead and discard the first one. And another Snapcaster Mage. I'm going to go ahead and attack with Bloodghast. Now we could use Burning Inquiry as a sorcery, and if it puts a Sidrax's Spectre in our graveyard, we could attack with that this turn. But I would much rather see if we can get the opponent to take some damage. Okay, so I think this is what we want to do here, is discard Bloodghast and then play a Blackcleave Cliffs to get it into play. So we are actually keeping up with the opponent, but keeping up with Jund is not what you want to do. You want to always be far ahead of where they are on the board, because they have so much more removal than we do. We're only using a few Lightning Bolts and Collective Brutalities. They can do things like this, just play multiple Bloodbraid Elves, and the Tarmogoyf is going to be a real problem. All of these creatures are relatively small. Tarmogoyf is very large and will prevent us from doing what we want to do, which is get in there with all these Bloodghasts. I'm going to go ahead and Snapcaster back the Faithless, or I'm sorry, the Burning Inquiry. And if we don't draw something relevant here, we're just going to be dead. The search is too slow with this draw. So Collective Brutality will destroy the untapped Bloodbraid Elf, put us to 8. Snapcaster blocks Tarmogoyf. That doesn't do it, so we're going to concede instead of showing the Collective Brutality. So against Jund, we don't really want much of our sideboard. Tasigur is a consideration. However, we're built to be fine against Jund main deck, so it's not like any of these cards are actually bad. We don't have anything that's like, oh, we have to take this out. We could like cut Izzet Charm for a Grim Lavamancer. We could trim a Lightning Bolt for a Grim Lavamancer. I think I'll go ahead and try that because they're on Bloodbraid Elf. But other than that, I think our deck is set up perfectly fine for Jund. We could bring in Bojuka Bog for shrinking Tarmogoyfs, but we're running a lot of the same card types that they are. The only thing we'd really be removing is Planeswalker. So, and I'm not going to target myself with Bojuka Bog because we've got Bloodghast, Snapcasters, Searches, everything like that. So I think it's fine to just swap out the one card for a Grim Lavamancer and see what the opponent brings in. The opponent might bring in artifact removal depending on what they have, because if we're playing Burning Inquiry, they're going to know that we're a Hollow One deck. They'll probably bring in their own graveyard removal, so it'd be reasonable to take out a Search for Azcanta, but I don't think I want to do that. As long as they don't bring in Leyline of the Void, we're actually fine. Things like Relic of Progenitus, Extra Scavenging Ooze, Bojuka Bog of their own, Tormod's Crypt, anything like that that's a one-shot or a removable graveyard hate, our deck can play around because we have both discard synergies and graveyard synergies. So if they have, let's say, a Relic of Progenitus, we can use Burning Inquiry and play 2 Hollow Ones, and that doesn't stop anything. We're going to lose all the cards we randomly discarded, but we'll get full value from our Hollow Ones and from our Waste Nots anyway. And against Jund, we also want to play our Cedraxis Specters as creatures, not as flashback spells. So let's look at this hand. We have a turn 1 Hollow One, and we have our 2 most important colors, so we're definitely going to keep this. If we can draw a second Hollow One, or especially if we can draw 3 of them, it'll be a really easy game, I think. However, one of them is enough to apply some pressure. So first we're going to Faithless Looting. I think we don't want Collective Brutality, and we can get rid of 1 Street Wraith. So we have a 4/4. The opponent has nothing yet. Hollow One is immune to Fatal Push and Lightning Bolt, and difficult to Abrupt Decay. So if the opponent has something like Dismember, they can use that. Grafdigger's Cage is fine. That will stop our Bloodghast and Cedraxis Specters from being reanimated, but we can still use them as weak creatures, and the opponent is down a card from the Grafdigger's Cage. So we have several options here. We can play Burning Inquiry and try and draw into another Hollow One. Or we can play Darkslick Shores and pass with Lightning Bolt up, which I think is my preference. We're going to attack for 4 with the Hollow One, and if we can draw another colored source, any color will work, we can play the Cedraxis Specter hardcast, and that will be difficult for the opponent to deal with while also handling the Hollow One. What we're hoping for is for the opponent... actually, I was going to say to play something like Scavenging Ooze or Dark Confidant, but if they just play absolutely nothing, that's even better. So we have Creeping Tar Pit, so we can't play the Spectre this turn, but we do get to play it next turn. We're going to attack for another 4, put the opponent to 10, and we're still holding up Lightning Bolt. So if the opponent plays something like Scavenging Ooze and activate it on a Street Wraith, we can kill that. We'll see if they shock here. I doubt it. Basic Swamp is normal for them to get here. Okay, Liliana of the Veil. And then I expect they'll make us Edict here. So we're going to sacrifice the Hollow one. It would have been nice if we could sacrifice the Sidraxis Spectre, but we're also going to go ahead and play that. The reason the Spectre is less powerful... Okay, this changes the plans. We're going to play a Waste Not, play a Sanitarium, and Burning Inquiry. So this gets Abrupt Decay out of the opponent's hand, which is very important because that can answer Waste Not. And it gets us a zombie and a land. The land we're probably going to discard to the Sanitarium at some point. One other thing to keep in mind about Grafdigger's Cage specifically, it does absolutely nothing to interfere with Search for Azcanta. However, I will be trimming some Snapcaster Mages and bringing in the rest of the Grim Lavamancers. Okay, that's fair. We already got our value out of this. We drew several cards and made a 2-2. Because we have an extra land to discard, I'm going to play Blackleaf Cliffs, and we're going to hold on to the Darkslick Shores to discard. We're going to attack, put the opponent to 6 unless they have a removal spell. We're trying to bait out a Fatal Push or a Lightning Bolt here, or an Abrupt Decay. Anything that would be able to kill the Spectre is what we want to deal with. So now the opponent is at 8. Our Bloodghasts have haste. We could have played a Bloodghast this turn and attacked with both, but I want to get the Spectre in play because it provides quite a bit more pressure than the Bloodghast, as well as having evasion and higher power. It also makes the opponent discard. So if we draw another Waste Not, oh, that's unfortunate. So they're going to get our Bloodghast, and because of the Grafdigger's Cage, it doesn't come back from the graveyard. I'm not going to bring in artifact removal for the cage. If I had access to Kolaghan's commands, I would bring one of those in, or maybe 2 since it can kill Bloodbraid Elves. But dedicated removal like Vandal Blast is just not good enough. So we're going to attack with the Spectre. And then I'm honestly not sure whether I want to activate the Sanitarium or not. I think I'm going to see what the opponent discards. So the opponent discarded a slow answer to the Spectre. I think I do want to cast this, yeah. So if we activate the Sanitarium and discard the Darkslick Shores, we would be 1 mana short to cast the Hollow one unless we drew something like a Faithless Looting. And with the opponent at such a low life total and us already having a creature out, I just want to apply more pressure. So that was not a particularly powerful draw. But it was good enough because we had the single turn 1 Hollow one. I'm also going to bring in Tasigur. And so we need to take out 1 more card. Let's do this. If they don't have Grafdigger's Cage, I think Snapcaster is better than Bloodghast. And if they do, then it's significantly better. However, we want to keep a couple just to leave it as a potential discard for a turn 1 looting or inquiry. We saw Grim Lavamancer out of the opponent's deck, which would make Izzet Charm reasonable to prevent them from controlling our creatures. But because we have our own Grim Lavamancers and we can fill our graveyard better than they can, I think we don't need the Izzet Charm specifically. Lightning Bolt and Collective Brutality also kill their Grim Lavamancers, so I'm not extremely worried about that as a card. So we have Waste Not, Burning Inquiry, Lavamancer. These are both synergies with the Burning Inquiry, so a single Thoughtseize or Inquisition won't completely shut us down. We also have 2 spell lands here, which are good against Jund because Jund doesn't usually run Field of Ruin, and recently I haven't seen very much Fulminator Mages or Molten Rains out of them. So we're going to play turn 1 Creeping Tar Pit, I think, is the play so that we can get Waste Not out. Notice that they don't have a turn 1 discard spell, nor do they have a turn 1 Grafdigger's Cage, which means their hand is probably going to be very powerful later on in the game. I would expect something like a combination of Lilianas, Tarmogoyfs, and Bloodbraid Elves out of the opponent. Okay. So the question here is, do we want to play into Abrupt Decay? And I think because the opponent has gone twice without a discard spell, it's safe to sit on the Waste Not one more turn. And if the opponent plays a Liliana, we can play Waste Not and Burning Inquiry in the same turn. So there's a Fatal Push. Some kind of removal is expected with this little action in the early turns. And the Tarmogoyf, as we expected. The opponent has now tapped out of Golgari Charm and Abrupt Decay, so we are going to get value off of this Waste Not, but we do have to be aware that we're probably going to make the Tarmogoyf fairly large. I would expect a 5/6 Tarmogoyf after this Burning Inquiry. And opponent discards no creatures, so we are going to take 5 damage. Okay. I could discard Street Wraith to dig for Hollow One, but because we have a Faithless Looting and a Burning Inquiry on our next turn, I don't think we need to do that. The opponent probably has more Lightning Bolts. So they do have some removal for Hollow One anyway, so we don't want to dig too deep. We'll definitely play to get the Hollow One out if we draw one naturally, though. Okay. So we don't have an untapped land for this turn. And we want to play a land before we Burning Inquiry. So we can either get Megaliths or Blackclave Cliffs. Megaliths is good, but our hand is very full, and we need a second black for the Tar Pit and possibly Street Wraith, so I'm going to prioritize this way. We're going to Burning Inquiry first. Notice again we might discard Bloodghast. So this time we did get them to discard a creature card. We're going to cast a Hollow One. We could Burning Inquiry again. Yeah, I think that's worth it. The other play I'm considering here is playing Search for Azcanta because it'll immediately flip. Okay, so now we are doing very, very good. The opponent needs Maelstrom Pulse or Damnation. And they obviously don't have it if they're doing this play. So they get to kill the Hollow One. And they do have Fulminator Mage, so that would be something to keep in mind later. Just as a snapshot of the meta, whenever you play against a deck, see what they're playing. If you play against the same deck from different players multiple times and notice the same sideboard cards, that's a good snapshot of the meta. So we could take the damage here, but I don't really have an interest in doing that. An untapped land would be extremely good here because it would allow us to play another Waste Not. Okay, Huntmaster of the Fells is fine. It would allow us to play another Waste Not, and then Snapcaster back Burning Inquiry is what I was going to say. Okay, so Bloodghast is fine. We can discard that. I I think we're actually slightly behind here. I'm going to go ahead and attack with both of the zombies. What I'm hoping for here is for the opponent to trade wolf and take 2 damage. That's what they do. We can now lightning bolt the Huntmaster. And then Snapcaster back in Inquiry. So let's see if we can make a couple more zombies. We don't get to make any more zombies, so we'll have to block with Snapcaster. However, we do have the mana to play another Waste Not, a Blackcleave Cliffs, bring back a Bloodghast, and cast a Bloodghast. So my guess here is that the opponent will have a removal spell and we will be taking 6 damage. Okay, they don't, so we're going to take 4 damage from Raging Ravine. Yeah, it's definitely worth it to block here. We're dead in 2 hits if we don't ever block anything. Okay, so let's go ahead and loot. See what we draw. So we don't want this Darkslick Shores, and I don't think we want this island. So we'll go ahead and loot again. We don't want land. It's a question of, do we want Lightning Bolt or Grim Lavamancer? And I think we want Grim Lavamancer just as a chump blocker. So we're going to discard the Bolt as well. We're going to play the Lavamancer. We're going to attack with the Bloodghast because that's all they're really doing. And then we're going to play Search for Azcanta. And our goal here is to dig for another Burning Inquiry, of which there are 3 left in the deck. No, there's 2. So there's 2 Burning Inquiries left and 25 cards. We will get to look at least 4, 5. Okay. We're going to block here. We're going to take the 5. If he has double Lightning Bolt, we're dead to that, but I think we need to keep the Lavamancer in play, just to block the Tarmogoyf next turn. Burning Inquiry would be good here. We're going to keep Tasigur and transform. So Tasigur is going to come in. We're going to exile all of the artifacts to shrink the Tarmogoyf a little. And let's look at enchantments. I don't think the opponent has any enchantments. So we're going to shrink the Tarmogoyf quite a bit. And then we'll just take out some lands. So now the Tarmogoyf is down to 4/5, and it bounces off of Tasigur, but we'll need to chump block this. We have the option of attacking with the Tar Pit. The benefit of that is that it gives Bloodghast's hastes. The drawback is that we won't have mana to activate the Lavamancer, which I think is important. Collective Brutality is fine, but we're not going to use it this turn. I was hoping for a Burning Inquiry. So we're just going to go ahead and get in there with Bloodghast again. Now, we could just be dead. It's entirely reasonable for the opponent to have their other 2 Lightning Bolts, even though they're only halfway in their deck. That just happens sometimes. It's variance. I don't think we boarded out our Sidrax's Specters. No, that wouldn't have made sense. So all of our Sidrax's Spectres are still in the deck. This could be an Animate. It could be a Bloodbraid Elf. Animate is a safe play for the opponent to just keep pressuring us. Okay, so we're definitely going to activate the Lavamancer. Our cards in graveyard are not that important. And they're getting back a Bloodbraid, which will be attacking this turn. I'm just going to target the opponent. So if the opponent hits a removal spell for Tassiger with this Bloodbraid Elf, we are extremely dead. Yeah, we're dead. And the odds of that are not that slim. Like, half of his deck will do it. Liliana wouldn't do it. Fatal Push wouldn't do it. But Dreadbore definitely does it. Okay, so that was a close game. Gonna go ahead. I think that's the same guy. No, it's not. So Junda's close. Junda's close in most matchups. We just didn't get fast enough. This is another hand where we don't have red, but we're going to keep anyway. I was trying this deck with a fetch and shock mana base, and the mana was much more consistent, but you would end up dealing 9 or 10 damage to yourself pretty much every game and able to get a consistent mana base because you had so few basics. Okay, cool. So we're going to do this. My suspicion here is that Waste Not is going to be making a lot of creatures in this matchup. It could be Ponza, but I doubt it. Yeah, it's some sort of collected company deck. So we'll probably be making 2 creatures and drawing a card, or 3 creatures, unless the opponent just randomly discards a bunch of lands. So what we have is we can Burning Inquiry right now, or we can bolt one of the mana guys, and I just want to maximize the variance and go for the most busted possible play. The opponent actually have a counterspell? Okay, interesting. In that case, I guess we're just going to cast a Bloodghast. And I'm holding on to this Street Wraith until we can combine it with something. Okay. I have not played against a Remand Acid Moth deck before, so we're kind of dealing with some new stuff here. We're going to need to find a red source or our deck will not function. Okay, so this does something. We're going to go ahead and do all the modes. Bloodghast is a free discard. Izzet Charm is not going to do much this match. So what are we looking at here? We're looking at an Oracle of Moldiah, which we have a Lightning Bolt for if we draw red, and a World Breaker, which is still a ways away. Okay, we have a lot of Bloodghasts here. We'll need to find a land at some point. So the opponent's going to play a land drop here and an Oracle, which puts them up to World Breaker if they hit something else next turn. So we need to... Okay, they're up to World Breaker already. Then they draw another Explorer. Yeah, this is a bad position here. With the Acid Moss, they were able to keep us off of red, and with the Remand, they stopped us from doing anything. So one of the costs in drawing all of our blood gas and no enablers doesn't help. So we're going to concede this one, go to sideboarding. Mana Dork deck, we definitely want Lavamancers. They look like they're doing some Eldrazi things, so we want those. Notion Thief didn't look particularly good. Is it Charm is fine, but Lavamancers doing that better. They're mono green, so Sword seems good. I'm going to cut the Specters. And then we're choosing between a Search for Azcanta or a Bloodghast. I think because they have land destruction, the search is not that great. I think I'm actually going to bring in the Bajuka Bog just to hedge a little bit against land destruction, because I don't think we're going to do much with search this game. So here's another high variance hand. We could get some hollow ones turn one, or we could get just mulligan ourselves out of the game. So let's spin the wheel, see what we get. We didn't draw a second land. That's something that we'll need to accomplish. And we have one too many Snapcaster Mages, I think. One is good for the Burning Inquiry, but if it were the second one were a land, this whole hand would look much, much stronger. So if we draw like Tar Pit, no, we don't. Going to go ahead and kill the bird. We have pressure in play. We want to just keep the opponent from doing anything to disrupt us. Okay, so the opponent doesn't have remand. That's a good sign. Yeah. And this does happen with a 19 or 20 land deck, is that you can just not draw the second one. But if we draw any blue source, our entire hand becomes castable. The Snapcasters are not ideal without flashing back a spell, but they're a 2-power creature, which is doing something in our deck. Okay. This deck may not want 4 Snapcaster Mages. I was running it with 3 for a while, and that seemed fine. But flashing back a Burning Inquiry with a Waste Not in play is just such a strong tempo and card advantage play that I wanted to have it as an available option. Obstinate Bailiff is an expected sideboard card. This seems like a much worse matchup for us than Jund was. And it might just be that we've been a little bit behind on mana in both games. But the opponent seems like they're doing stuff that we can't compete with, like Worldbreaker. Jund is just making a bunch of like Bloodbraid Elves and removal spells, which is an axis that we can compete on. If the opponent Acid Mosses us here, it doesn't really matter which color they take. We're in big trouble. Yeah. I think that this is going to be game over. This match was short enough. I'll probably play another one. We really did not do anything here. There's a Tar Pit. So we're not entirely out of the game because all of our spells are blue. And if we draw a red source, we can flash back one of our good spells. So the opponent's probably going to play an Eldrazi here, and I'm going to counter it. Or it looks like an Acid Slime, or an Acidic Slime. Primal Command. Yeah, I'm done with this. Hopefully that guy doesn't jump back in. And he does. Okay, we'll see if we can draw better against this deck. I feel like the second game, if we had been a little bit farther ahead, we would have been doing fine. Like if we had had 2 hollow ones instead of a single one. The Dark Slick Shores may actually want to be like a mix of Steam Vents and Blood Crypts, because red mana is much more important to the deck than blue. You can cast 2 or 3 red spells in a turn, and generally you're only casting 1 blue spell, because we're not running cantrips with the Snapcaster Mages. Okay. Okay, so this is an interesting decision. We don't have a 1-drop, and Megaliths will cast our Waste Not or Brutality, which are our good 2-drops. So it's fine to play the Megalith tap turn 1. We can't F8, so we have to F6 because of the Street Wraith is a free ability. So the opponent is doing his acceleration thing. So we have a choice here. We can cycle the Street Wraith and look for something better. I don't think we need to do that. We can Brutality to kill the Hierarch and hopefully take a ramp spell out of their hand. Or we can Waste Not and get the Waste Not into play. And I think they might blow up our Black Source. So I want to get the Waste Not into play so that we can use the Sanitarium to get some value. If they don't blow up our Black Source, we can get Bloodghast into play and take away several of their cards, which will put us in the driver's seat. Something like Obstinate Baloth I'm not as worried about here because it's not going to kill us extremely quickly. Oracle is fine. We can Brutality that. So they have 2 lands, so they're ahead in lands. Okay, so we need to think about what we're going to do here, and I think it's going to be the Spire Bluff Canal, because we're going to keep this safe in our hand away from their land destruction. And then we're going to do all 3 modes. I just messed up because I should have discarded Bloodghast first. I've not been playing Bloodghast decks for very long in Modern. This is the first time I've really used it, and I only got it a few days ago. The opponent remands. Let's go ahead and cycle, see if we can find like a Faithless Looting or something. We do not. So next turn the opponent is going to probably Spreading Seas this. Okay. I'm going to go get a mountain. And the opponent lets us bring our Bloodghast back for free, which is nice of them. Okay, opponent is a J-Stick. That makes more sense. So they're playing with cards that are recently added to the format, so that's why they're on a new deck. Spreading Seas on the Megalith makes sense. Notice that because this is specifically instant or sorcery card, it's not a full duress. We cannot take that Jace out of their hand. We're going to have to play through it. Yep, get some damage in. Go ahead and attack. I don't think the opponent can do anything because their last card is a Jace, so they're just going to take this damage. We're going to play a Swamp. going to drain them some life, and we're going to kill the Oracle of Moldiah. And so we know the opponent doesn't have another Spreading Seas, and we have an island left in our deck, or I guess we don't have a swamp left in our deck. Yeah, I think our plan from here on is going to be the Sanitarium. Jace comes down. They're going to brainstorm. Opponent hasn't drawn any of their Eldrazi this game, so our small creatures are still doing work. They're trying to race us with Noble Hierarchs, which against Bloodghast is pretty risky. Yeah, we don't have a good answer for that. We do have some basics left, just the island. Faithless Looting. Okay. Gonna go ahead and loot. We're gonna definitely discard Spectre. We're gonna discard Street Wraith. Play Sanitarium. So our options here are activate Sanitarium or play Search for Azcanta. And I'm going to go ahead and attack the Jace and see if he chump blocks. If Jace dies, then I'm going to activate the Sanitarium. Because it doesn't, I'm going to play the Search for Azcanta. This way, if the opponent Fate Seals and leaves a bad card on top, the Azcanta will let us put it in the graveyard. Okay, and he remands it, which is fine. We'll just play it again. What our goal is here is to find a way to disrupt the opponent and shut them down and kill their Jace, and then them before they draw something like a World Breaker. That will just completely lock up the game. Okay. I wonder if their Eldrazi are single copies to look for with Primal Command. That would make quite a bit of sense, especially using Primal Command as a shuffle for Jace. So I wonder if their plan is just ramp Jace's mana dorks, and then they're running a little bit of disruption with the remands, and then a Primal Command toolbox. Okay, Field of Ruin. That's a problem. That's going to kill our Sanitarium. So we get one Sanitarium activation. Let's go ahead and mill this. We have a Faithless Looting already. I'm going to transform this. If he kills our Azcanta with Field of Ruin, he doesn't kill our Sanitarium. So we get a draw card here. Snapcaster is good. I'm going to attack both of these at Jace. And my assumption is he's going to trade the Oracle for one, and then we can bolt the Jace anyway. Okay, no, he just chumps. Let me bolt the Oracle then. So he's gonna brainstorm here, and then presumably he's gonna Field of Ruin. We'll see what he targets. If he targets Azcanta, I don't care. And he targets these Sanitariums, so that's fine. We have nothing to search for, but we still have 5 mana, so we're doing alright on mana. The opponent's going to need like 2 more land destruction effects before we're in trouble. The Ghost Quarter is 1. Spreading Seas on Azcanta is fine. If we can draw a Burning Inquiry, we can really do something in this game. We have not used any of them. We've not used any hollow ones. So we can flashback Snapcaster now, which opens our mana up for Faithless Looting next turn, or we can use the Snapcaster to flashback Lightning Bolt next turn, and I think that's better. Okay, that's going to do nothing. I'm going to go ahead and attack Jace with both of these. He will have to block with both or lose the Jace. Okay, so this is good for us. Now let's see if he has a remand. Alright, that's very unfortunate. Yeah, because we're strangled on black mana, we can't really do anything else this turn. This would be another benefit to a fetch shock mana base, where we could go and get another black source with the Spirebluff Canal or whatever. But most of our lands that we have in play have come from the opponent's Field of Ruin. So we've got our basics in play, which we would not be able to do anything with Shocklands anyway. So the good news this turn... Okay, so you can kill an island. Yep. The good news this turn is that Jace dies. And we get Burning Inquiry. So 1 at Jace, 4 damage at you. Another Burning Inquiry in the hand. I'm going to cycle this now. Actually, yes, because this is not red mana. Cycle. Seems good. So I think we have managed to play through 2 Jaces. And at this point, we might actually be safe from an Eldrazi. There's the 3rd Jace. Brainstorm, look for something. He's short mana for Primal Command. Yep, so we got there. So that's satisfying. So now we know the opponent is a Jace deck. The Notion Thieves come in. Opponent doesn't appear to be a Snapcaster deck, so I'm not sure about the Bojuka Bogs. I'm going to take out the searches again. I guess we can bring in 1 bog and cut something. Let's try some Lavamancers over the Brutalities. I don't want to cut a Bolt for the Lavamancer because Bolt can kill a Brainstorming Jace. But I can cut an Izzet Charm. And then it's just a question of, do we want any of these cards? It's like, do we want to cut a Bloodghast and bring a Search back in? Spectre is a little bit difficult on the mana, so maybe we don't want those. Maybe we want Tassigurs and Searches. Spectre is good against Jace if we have black mana. It's otherwise very weak. Bloodghast is extremely good because of all the opponent's Ghost Quarters, so I don't think we want to cut any of those. We don't want the Graveyard Hatred. We don't want the Artifact Removal. These might work against his Eldrazi, but I think the way that game played, he's more of a Jace deck, Primal Command deck than an Eldrazi deck. The Eldrazi are just going to be what shows up when we've already lost the game. Yeah, this maxes out our mana sources. We know he has Baloths, which Tassigur is good against. I'm going to submit this. Okay, turn 1, Looting and Bloodghast, and then Notion Thief later. This is a keep. Opponent is on the play, which is good for the ramp deck. Relic is fine. We're going to go ahead and Looting away the Bloodghast anyway. If he wants to lose the Relic to deal with it, I'm fine with that. So he's going to target us. We're going to get rid of the land. He targets us again. We're going to get rid of the Faithless Looting. Yep, Looting gone. And then he can pop if he wants. So Snapcasters we're not going to mess with. We could Inquiry here, which might mess up his hand. Sure. I think this is worth losing Notion Thief. Possibly. It's only, looks like around 30%, 30-35% chance of losing Burning Inquiry. I don't know the exact math off the top of my head. And the reason I played the land first instead of trying to hit more Bloodghasts is because I want to have a black source in play. Our deck is heavy enough on black that if we discarded both of our Darkslick Shores and did not draw another one, another black source, we would be in quite a bit of trouble, even though our hand right now is mostly blue. It'd be very good to find an untapped land here. Okay, so no untapped land. We actually might end up with no cards in hand in this game, so I'm going to use the Megaliths as my land play. And we lose the Notion Thief, but we get some spells back. Having to use Burning Inquiry without a Hollow One or a Waste Not is rough. but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. We're not putting much pressure on the opponent, but the opponent is not doing really anything to us, and we've randomly discarded one of their Jaces and one of their Acid Mosses, which is their cards that actually do things. Okay, so there's an Acid Moss. So they're going to go find a forest. This is our turn to do stuff with our graveyard because they don't have a mana to activate the relic. So we've got Sanitarium. Yep. I think we're just going to Snapcaster back the Burning Inquiry. Okay, so we hit the Waste Not, we hit a Search, but we lost our Sanitarium. So what's going to happen here is next turn we're going to play Lavamancer and Search, and they're going to pop the Relic. If they play an Oracle, we'll have to kill that. If they play a Jace, we'll have to kill that. So there's a Field of Ruin, 2 Fields of Ruin. We have not used any basics yet. Okay, we can do... I'm going to go ahead and attack with both. So we're going to go ahead and Inquiry again. This time we're going to have a Waste Not in play unless the opponent uses a Remand. And we ended up with exactly the same cards. We unfortunately don't have a use for this black mana, so that's going to go to waste. If we had our Sanitarium that turn, we could have used that and gotten another Waste Not trigger. Okay, so there's a Baloth. Gonna exile. No, he's not exiling the Relic. Looks like a Jace is coming down here. Jace probably Brainstorms. Yep. Okay, so there's a World Breaker. That's trouble. That probably wins him the game. We can't kill him next turn because of the Baloth. If we draw another Burning Inquiry or Snapcaster Mage, that might get us enough value. Opponent's very heavy on the land-based disruption. Okay, so they choose to not play Obstinate Baloth. Interesting. If they play something like an Explore, they'll be tapped out for the Relic. So we can, this turn, hit the opponent for 6 damage and then bolt them. But unfortunately, next turn they'll play the Baloth and be out of trouble. So I'm going to settle for just killing the Jace, playing a land, attacking with everything. And then we have a choice here between Search and Lavamancer. And I think I want Search because it helps us find spells that do something. The Lavamancer just forces the opponent to pop the Relic, and Search will do that and have an additional effect on the game besides just being a 1/1. Also, next turn we should be able to play the Lavamancer, which gets Megaliths online and forces the opponent to use one of these land destruction lands. And then that'll get us a black source in case we draw something like Collective Brutality, or I think we took out the Specters, but a Notion Thief would be good. So there's the World Breaker. I think they have another one. This might be, they could have put the same World Breaker back with Jace. That seems likely, more likely than having two copies because of what I'd said in the last game about the Primal Command toolbox. So we know somewhere in their deck there is a new Ulamog, and then they've got this World Breaker and an Obstinate Baloth. So that is 3 toolbox creatures. I would expect something like a Reclamation Sage or an Acidic Slime because we're after sideboarding. But past that, I don't know if they have any other toolbox stuff. Okay, so they gained some life and got rid of our graveyard. And they play a Baloth. So we need a Burning Inquiry here, is what we need. We're going to yield to this. We're going to bin Hollow one. Oh, that's unfortunate. Attacking doesn't really do anything, but all of these creatures are going to be completely worthless when the World Breaker comes in. The World Breaker is also going to destroy our search for Azcanta, so I'm fairly confident that we've lost this game. And there's Ulamog, so we're pretty much done. I'm just going to play this out a little bit because we're close to the opponent on time. So one thing to notice is we're playing a Burning Inquiry deck, and the opponent has Obstinate Baloth, but it just never came up that the ability was here because we're not using Liliana, we're just using one-shot burst, so it's unlikely for the opponent to have it at the right time. And even if they do get it into play, it doesn't always matter. We're going to bend this, we're going to draw Lightning Bolt. We have a very, very slim possibility to win this game, only because we've taken no real damage. You can see what we said earlier about Relic not being a huge deal. The opponent has used burst removal on our graveyard several times this game with the Relic and the Primal Command, and we're still executing our game plan. We haven't been able to flip our search, but they would have answers to that anyway. So it's not as big of a deal. I would expect to bounce the zombie here, but the opponent may just go bounce the Lavamancer. Interesting. So what do we need to happen to win this game? If the opponent sacks Rainforest, that will help quite a bit because Lightning Bolt is live. If we draw a Faithless Looting or a Burning Inquiry, we can draw into some more burn. Yeah, we definitely are going to put Bloodghast in the graveyard. Do we cycle Street Wraith? So this is 9 damage, 11, 13 exactly. but they don't have a meaningful way to get rid of our blockers in blue-green. So I'm going to cycle it. We could draw a hollow one. Second search for Escanta. That doesn't really do much. I'm going to play it anyway to feed the Lavamancer. So this turn we're going to chump block with the zombie. And then we're going to draw, and we need to draw either a lightning bolt or a way to dig for lightning bolt. Okay, we can't chump with the zombie. He might have another Jace to bounce the Lavamancer. Or no, we know he has Ulamog, and so this is mana for Ulamog. Sure. Yeah, I totally blanked on him having Ulamog, so we were just dead there. So what can we do against this opponent? So he has Relic of Progenitus. I think I am going to bring in an Izzet Charm over a Bloodghast. The Bloodghasts are not impressing me here. And then the issue is just, do we want Cedrax's Spectre? Maybe reducing our vulnerability to Graveyard Hate, even though we were able to do things through it, maybe just reducing our vulnerability to it is correct. We can bring in the rejections because now we know he has Eldrazi and he has the Relic of Progenitus. So those are a little bit better. And then I'm not sure what I want to cut. I guess we can just run one. So we're going to be on the play this time. Being on the play probably would have been good enough last game. This hand is fine. We have a turn 1 Lavamancer, and then we can bolt any mana dork that they play, we can bolt it. And then if we eventually draw a Faithless Looting or something, we'll get this hollow one into play. And we can play the Spectre as a creature this game. So let's see if they play nothing. Okay, there's a sword. That's fairly good. I'm going to go ahead and attack. And I think we're going to bolt something at the end of the opponent's turn. Or right now. Just because we have several uses for our mana for the next few turns. Opponent's tapped out. We're going to get in there for another point. This looks like a game where we might cycle a hollow one, but we're probably going to draw something that makes a better play than that. Okay, so there's a second sword. We can't equip the sword right now, so we're just going to attack. See what the opponent discards. There's a Field of Ruin. They're going to go do something with their Misty right now. Not sure what they want to do at end of combat. Just nothing? Okay. So we're going to play a sword. I'm expecting a Remand, but he doesn't have it. Something to note, Hollow One can't tell how much it costs, so it'll try and prevent you from F8ing, or I guess 8ing now. So it just always thinks it costs 0 even when it costs 5. Okay, so here's the Acid Moss, but I actually think we're going to put a sword on this Spectre, and that's going to be good. Good enough. Oh, that's too bad. So we're definitely going to sword up the Spectre. We're going to attack with everybody. just play another sword. This is really the first game where we've got to do much with sword. And it's quite good, as you can see. So the opponent could have Primal Command here, would be a good out for them. That's what it looks like to me. Primal Command, put a sword on top, go get a Bailoff. They're trying to figure out the best modes for command. But I think we're fine here. Opponent's going to go up to 11 life. Yep. And then we're going to make them discard 2 more cards. Okay, no, they're not going to do the sword. Interesting. Interesting. So if we draw a land here, we're going to just snowball very quickly out of control. Opponent's done. Opponent realizes what's going to happen. So there's the deck. There's a couple matches with it. Thank you for watching. I'm not going to be able to make videos every week as I was hoping. However, when I do have a deck like this that I think is interesting in the meta or something fun to try out for a budget, I will be making more videos with those. So please like and subscribe to the channel, and thank you for watching.